Welcome on into the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you so much for making us one of your sports listens of the day. Joining me, as he does every single week, is my good friend, Jacob Goins, host of On the Line Sports Talk on 106.7. Jacob, the Auburn Tigers barely managed to 40%. As a matter of fact, they were sub 40% shooting for a lot of that game last night. You and I were in the house. Johni Broome was the walking double-double day. He is 16 points, 13 rebounds. But look, had it not been for a really tough shooting night for, and I want to make sure I say his name right, Zvonimir Ivicic.
Yeah, I think so. This sounds right. Yeah. That's how I've said it. Ivicic or whatever. But look, the kid can play.
He can play.
We were talking in the media room afterwards, waiting on the press conferences from Calipari and from Bruce Pearl, and we were talking about how this kid was shooting at a 45-50% clip since he joined the starting lineup for Arkansas and had been a difference maker, especially in their win against Kentucky and in some of these games where they have right there in these top 10 matchups. And our boy came in and shot 0 for 10. Mike G, didn't hit a shot, man. Didn't hit a single bucket. That's hard to do, and it's rare to do as well for a player to his skill level. And it wasn't just him. I mean, Arkansas did not shoot the ball well. And look, Calipari said it in his presser, and you could say this for every game, yes, but he said, man, we hit a couple more shots, we win this game. We hit a couple of more shots, and we walk out of here with a win. And Mike, it's absolutely true. Auburn dodged a bullet in this one. Yeah, they absolutely did. They dodged a bullet against an Arkansas team that looked the part, played well, and I think other than shooting the ball, played good enough to win this game. They never went away. Auburn never had that big run that they typically have at home, and Arkansas had their chances, man. They couldn't convert down the stretch.
Yeah, agreed. It was, I struggle with the idea. I think that if they had hit a few more shots, Auburn loses. But if Auburn hits some shots that they normally make, Miles Kelly only 3 of 10 from the field, 1 of 6 from 3, albeit one of them a 3 on an absolute dime from Johni Broome. I don't even know how he saw him in the corner. That pass was crazy. But the effort was there. If you're Auburn, Miles Kelly notably going into the crowd over the scores table to save a ball that ended up being a bucket made by Chad Baker-Mazara. Look, Auburn, got back to 40% on the day. But if you're Auburn, you hit your averages to some extent. You just didn't shoot well in this game. Against Alabama, I think they got up 65 shots. In this game, they got up 62 shots. Again, at a 40% clip. Arkansas didn't do a lot great in this game. It's funny. Defensively, I would say that they did. And Bruce Pearl said in the postgame, he said, John Calipari teams normally guard my teams very, very well. So he was expecting this sort of matchup, Jacob, and this one. But again, if you're Auburn, you avoided what would have been – this would have been an embarrassing loss. I think at this point in the season, as the number one team in the country, this is not where you wanted to lose. I think, as number one.
No, and that's an Arkansas team that came in who was needing a win like that. Again, 3 of their last 4 games have been against top 10 teams, and they've been in every single one of those games. It's been a couple of possessions that they just fell short, and this one was no different. And it's a team where Calipari talked in the presser. He said, every game's a tournament game for us now. We have to get wins, and they were trying to do it against Auburn inside of Neville Arena. And so for Auburn to walk out of there with a win, you should be thanking your lucky stars, yes, but Auburn's the better team, obviously, and they showed how they can win a game if they don't shoot the ball well. They can win games in the 50s. They can win games in the 90s. They can win in all different ways. And for the biggest concern for this Auburn team is, well, they just didn't make enough shots. That doesn't worry me down the stretch of this season or when March gets here in just a couple of weeks, because unlike past teams, we've seen this team hit their shots at a consistent rate, whether it be Johni Broome and Chaney Johnson in the lane, whether it be Chad Baker or Miles Kelly from outside, or Denver Jones to Todd Pettiford just going to get a bucket. They have proven that they can go and knock down their shots when they need to. Whereas previous teams, right, we were truly concerned with whether they were going to consistently make their big time shots. So I'm not worried about it. I think Auburn is going to be just fine. But again, you escaped this game against Arkansas, and now you look ahead to Georgia this Saturday.
Yeah, look, I think for Auburn, it's all about that number 1 overall seed at this point in the season. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yep, I got you. Yep. Okay. My headset's dying, so I didn't know if it was me or if it was you. But yeah, I got you now.
But you are what you are going into the NCAA tournament. The committee has shown us you are what your regular season says you are. And so if you're Auburn, the focus has to be on that number 1 overall seed. Bad losses like the one that could have been last night in Neville are how you fall off that. Right now, if you're Auburn, you put some space between yourself and Bama last night with them falling to Missouri. Before we move on, Jacob, I do want to talk really quickly about officiating. Officiating continues to be a bugaboo for me. Last night, there was a non-basketball play after the whistle that was reviewed and called a common foul. Yeah. I don't understand the inconsistency in the rules surrounding officiating this season. Now, look, I'm not trying to say that the officials affected the game last night, but they could have. And yeah. I wish we could get some explanation from the SEC office on why the officiating is so wildly inconsistent from game to game. That should have been a flagrant foul. If that had been Chad Baker-Mazara that had pushed the guy after the play, they would have charged him with a felony and shipped him off to Rikers Island. I mean,
literally.
Yeah,
literally.
I just don't understand it.
I don't either. And it was very clear in this Auburn-Arkansas game that the officials wanted to control it. They wanted to keep it constrained, given the coaches on the sidelines, the players in this game, and obviously the emotions that were there because we saw 2 technical fouls, one on each side for Big Z and for Chad Baker-Mazara. So they were very clearly trying to send a message that they weren't going to tolerate it. But in that situation, the one that you're talking about, right, it's that point in the game in those moments where it's like people complain about officials going to the monitor and slowing down the game. It's like, I get it, right? Games are taking longer than they ever have before in college basketball. And it's frustrating. It is, because 2.5 hours is way too long for a college game. But my thing is, if you're going to go to the monitor, you better get the call right. I don't care if it favors Auburn, favors Arkansas. I don't care. Get the call right. But that's not the case most times. And that has to change. There has to be some sort of answer to that. And look, we've begged for official accountability for decades, and it hasn't happened, and it's not going to happen because there's a shortage of them as it is. But that particular play, yeah, when you fully shove somebody, go to the monitor and still get the call wrong, that's where I start to get frustrated.
Yeah, I would not be surprised to hear that Bruce Pearl sent that one to the SEC office demanding an explanation. Yeah. I think we all deserve an explanation as fans. You pay your hard-earned dollars for tickets. You show up to games. You cheer your butt off for your team. And the officials make themselves a storyline week after week. I just don't understand it. But hey, if the officials made you mad, the Rogue Shop has something that could calm you right down, Jacob. RogueShop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, even if it's the Bammers in your life. I know how frustrated they can be. The Rogue Shop will put them right in their place. Again, RogueShop.com. Use code REPORT to get 15% off plus free shipping. Also, this segment is brought to you by our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR to get code and use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. The spring is here, Jacob, and if you want to be outside grilling, Golden's Cast Iron has you covered. Lifetime products. I bought my dad the Kamado grill for Father's Day, and we haven't stopped grilling around that thing, making memories with my family via Golden's Cast Iron. Again, goldenscastiron.com/WR. Let's jump back into this. I do want to stick with the theme of Chad Baker-Mazara. Chad Baker-Mazara got teed up last night. Some antics in front of the Arkansas bench. The leash is short. Uh, I have been a strong advocate of let players be themselves. If you're going to have a winning team, a successful team, you're going to have players that have an edge to them. They're going to play with an edge. They're going to do things like this. If you're Bruce Pearl, your job is to manage it, harness it, but not let it cost you games. Could Chad Baker-Mazara have cost Auburn the game last night with what people think are his ongoing antics?
Absolutely. I mean, how could he not? I mean, have literally seen it happen against Yale in the NCAA tournament. And so at this point, right after that game, the entire offseason and even coming into this year was every single official that looks at their schedule and they see Auburn, they know they have to deal with two people. Bruce Pearl, who we love, but he's a lot for an official, and Chad Baker-Mazara. They know who Chad Baker is. They have him circled. Officials talk just like coaches, just like players, just like media. They know who Chad Baker-Mazara is. And they have, whether they will admit it or not, whether it's conscious or subconscious, they have a bias towards him because of the way he plays and the way that he acts. And so he very easily could have cost Auburn that game last night against Arkansas. And what I don't want, Mike, and what Auburn fans don't want is for him to cost Auburn a game in the future, because every game from here on out gets even more important as we finish out February and get into the month of March. Difference from last year's team to this year's team, I think Auburn could win a game without Chad Baker-Mazara. And I think you would agree with this, that tournament game was more of the shock factor rather than Chad not being on the floor for a consistent amount of time. I think this team would be okay, but why risk it? Why even put yourself in that situation? Chad's got to find a way to keep it in and still be who he is, because that's what makes him special, is the type of play he has and the edge that he plays with, right? I mean, he's a dog, and you hate playing against a guy like him, but you have to constrain it when the officials are coming after you, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, I agree. Look, you're not a better team without Chad Baker-Mazara on the floor. I think that's what we saw in the tournament against Yale is, look, you need him out there, because when the game's close, you never know who's going to go cold and win. And last night, Chad Baker-Mazara, when you look at his stat line, 15 points, 4 of 8 from the field, 6 of 6 from the free throw line. He's like the most prolific free throw shooter in Auburn history. You lose that game without him last night. You absolutely lose without him last night. So you've got to keep him on the floor. Auburn had 3 players in double figures last night. Chad Baker, Chaney Johnson continues to show up game after game, shooting, close to or over 50% from the field, and Johni Broome, obviously. But when Denver Jones has a 3 of 9 shooting night, or Miles Kelly goes 3 of 10 from the field, it's your Chad Baker-Mazaras that are there, cleaning up loose balls, getting to the hoop, getting fouled, and getting to the free throw line that help keep you in it. If you have them versus Yale, you're plus 2 points, because again, in that tournament, it was the 0 for Aiden Holloway that cost you, if you ask me.
Yeah.
It was up there. Didn't hit a shot, right? And you have Chad Baker to help fill 3 points, man. 3 points wins you the game. And you can't tell me if he's not on the court that they don't get that. So, this will be, I hope this is not a storyline come to tournament. I hope we're not talking about that technical foul, that flagrant one versus Chad Baker come tournament time. Get it out of your system now. If you're Chad Baker, you got to remember what that feeling was like running off the floor in Spokane while your team goes on to lose in the first round.
I just thought we were past it, because early this season it wasn't there. He was constrained. The team was just put your head down, win your games. Let's see what we can do. And maybe that was the mindset in the non-conference schedule was, we're not going to talk because we don't really know how good we are. Let's go prove it. Well, Auburn has proven it now, and Auburn continues to be the number 1 team in all of college basketball. And I think that's starting to sink in with them a little bit, especially for a guy like Chad Baker. By no means am I saying that he can't handle it or he's immature, because I don't think that's the case. I just think that's the type of guy that he is. He's good, and he knows it, and he wants you to know it. And Auburn's good, and they know it, and they want you to know it. You just have to have a bigger mindset, a bigger goal, rather than, hey, let me tell you about that 3 that I just made, or, hey, let's flash our rings and hold up the national championship trophy at the end of this thing. And look, I'll say it, that's on Bruce Pearl. You have to get that in their heads. You've got to be preaching that to them every single day. I don't care what it takes, because it could cost you a national championship. And if that happens, that would be sickening for Bruce Pearl, for the Auburn program, for Auburn fans, for everybody involved. That would be heartbreaking if it comes down to something like that that could cost you your best shot at a national title.
Yeah, it might sound alarmist to some people, but just remember the 2018 2019 team. It can't come down to that one play, that one foul that was absolutely a foul in the corner. That one non-called double dribble. You've got to put yourself in a position where it doesn't come down to that one play or that one call deciding your season. Play well enough to take that out of the equation, I think, is the challenge for the Auburn Tigers. But look, all eyes are going to be on him. This storyline reminds me a lot of Nick Fairley on the 2010 Auburn Tigers. Where,
good comparison, yeah.
Yeah, you remember that Iron Bowl where he sacks Greg McElroy and he does a little dance, and they threw a flag, and we're like, oh, come on, man. Really? Right. But it was all about reputation. He wasn't dancing in McElroy's face. He was 10 yards away from him when he did his dance.
Yeah, but officials talk. Again, officials talk. They know exactly what they know, the game they're officiating, the coaches they're dealing with, and the players that are involved. They know what's happening. And Auburn, just like Nick Fairley did, it's a great comparison, Mike. You have to have that and know that if you're CBM and this entire Auburn squad. He's not the only one that'll talk now. They all get out and get after it a little bit, especially letting people know. Johni with his too small signal and things like that. I mean, you have to be smart. That's all I'm saying. You've got to be smart about it.
Yeah, and similar to Chad Baker, remember the sack forced fumble recovery by Nick Fairley in that game?
Yes.
That's one of the most incredible plays you'll ever see. You were not a better football team without Nick Fairley on the field. And if you're Chad Baker, that's who you are, man. You help this basketball team. You've got to realize your importance to the team. I want to end with just one more point. After the game in Spokane, and I don't know if you were there, but we were in the post-game press conference, and Dylan Cardwell came in, and he was visibly upset with Chad Baker. And he made some very pointed comments about how has this helped the team? How did these antics help the team? So after there was a scene, our photographer got a great shot of Johni frustrated with Chad Baker at midcourt. What are you doing, man? And I don't think it's just on Bruce Pearl. I think it's on his teammates. It is paramount that they hold him accountable in these moments and just let him know these moments, these emotional moments of weakness will cost not only you, but us as a team. You don't want to make yourself that kind of storyline this year. Jacob Goins from On the Line Sports Talk on 106.7. Thank you for joining me. Before we get out of here, tell people where they can find you.
Yep, that's right. ESPN 106.7. That's here locally in Auburn, Opelika. You can listen anywhere in the world on ESPNAU.com. We talk Auburn basketball, Auburn football, anything Auburn related. We got you covered 2 to 4, Monday through Friday on ESPN 106.7 and ESPNAU.com.
Guys, that's it for another great edition of the Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. If you want more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. We are the War Report on every social media platform. TW Report on TikTok. We're signing off, and as always, for you.